The empire's doom began with one pregnant woman, the Baba Yaga. The spark of vengeance. The imperial governor of Tarsus Prime leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of emerald green liquor. Through the reinforced windows of his palace, he observed the streets below, aliens and humans alike, toiling under the empire's rule. He took a deep breath, satisfied with the order his soldiers had imposed. Then the door burst open. A captain of the Imperial Guard rushed in, his face pale. "Sir, we have an incident in District 7. A human woman. Another riot." The governor sighed. "No, sir. A woman, she killed an entire squad. Alone." The governor set down his glass. "Impossible." The captain swallowed hard. "We thought so too. Until we saw the footage." The governor gestured for the recording to play. The hollow screen flickered, revealing a grainy but unmistakable sight: a human woman, heavily pregnant, surrounded by armored soldiers. She didn't run. She didn't beg. She moved like a phantom, her hands and feet striking with lethal precision. In seconds, the soldiers lay dead around her. Then she turned toward the camera. Her gaze, cold as the void, bore into the lens. And then she spoke. "You took everything from me. Now, I take everything from you." The screen cut to static. The governor's hands trembled. He had heard whispers of a name. A myth. A terror from the fringes of human space. Baba Yaga. And now, she was here. The ghost of war. The governor wasted no time. He summoned his best enforcers, elite soldiers trained to crush insurgencies before they could take root. "Find her," he ordered. "Kill her before she becomes a problem." But Baba Yaga was not hiding. She moved like a shadow through the city, striking at patrols, freeing prisoners, leaving behind only death and destruction. Whispers spread among the human slaves and soldiers alike. The empire had taken her child. And now, she had nothing left to lose. By the time the enforcers tracked her to an abandoned warehouse, they were afraid. Yet, they entered, weapons raised. The silence was suffocating. The only sound was the flickering of failing lights. Then, a blade flashed. A scream. Gunfire erupted, but the shots found only darkness. One by one, the enforcers fell. When the last man collapsed, his throat cut, Baba Yaga stood over him, her breathing calm. She whispered in his ear, "Tell your masters I'm coming." And then she was gone. The empire's mistake. Panic gripped the imperial command. "She must be stopped," the governor growled. "Bomb the district. Burn the city if you have to." "Sir," a lieutenant hesitated, "many of our own people live there." "Collateral damage," the governor snapped. The bombardment began that night. Entire blocks were reduced to rubble. The screams of the innocent filled the air. The empire believed it had won. But they had only made her stronger. Among the ruins, Baba Yaga emerged. Bloodied, but alive. And now, she was truly angry. The hunt begins. The empire sent assassins. None returned. They sent bounty hunters. Their heads were found outside the governor's palace. The fear spread beyond Tarsus Prime. Other colonies heard the tale, the woman who would not die, the warrior who defied the empire. Rebellion ignited in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And Baba Yaga was at the heart of it all. The last warning. The governor made one last attempt. A fleet of warships hovered above the city, their weapons locked on every district. A message echoed through the streets. "Surrender now, Baba Yaga. Or we turn this planet to ash." For the first time, she responded. She stepped onto the main square, holoprojectors broadcasting her image across the empire. "You took my child. You thought you could break me." She paused, her gaze piercing through the screen. But you made a mistake. She lifted a detonator and pressed the button. The fall begins. Explosions erupted across the Imperial strongholds. Fuel reserves, barracks, weapon depots, all reduced to fire and smoke. The city's sky darkened as the fleet above lost control. Ships collided, falling like meteors into the streets. The governor watched in horror. She had turned his own city into a war zone. He fled to his personal shuttle, desperate to escape. But as the doors opened, she was there. Waiting. Baba Yaga stepped inside, bloodied and battered but standing tall. "You took my child," she whispered. The governor trembled. Please." She raised her blade. "No mercy." And with a single stroke, the governor of Tarsus Prime fell. The rebellion rises. With the governor dead, the city erupted into chaos. The imperial forces, leaderless and terrified, began to retreat. The people, those who had suffered under the empire, rose up. They took up arms, fighting for the first time in years. Baba Yaga had given them hope. One planet fell, then another. The empire had ruled for centuries, but now, its doom was written in fire and blood. The empire's last stand. The emperor himself declared war. He sent his greatest warriors, his deadliest fleets. But Baba Yaga had become more than a warrior. She was a legend, an idea, and ideas could not be killed. As the imperial fleet descended upon the rebelling worlds, they found something they had never expected, an army. Not of soldiers, of mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, people who had lost everything. People who had nothing left to fear. And at the front of it all, Baba Yaga stood, her blade raised. "This is for my child," she whispered. And the final battle began. The emperor's fall. The battle raged for days. The empire fought desperately, but it was too late. Baba Yaga was relentless. She cut through the elite guards, stormed the emperor's throne room, and faced the tyrant himself. "You brought this upon yourself," she told him. The emperor sneered. "You think killing me will end this?" She tilted her head. "No." And then she lit the throne room on fire. The empire burned with it. The legend lives on. The war was over. The empire had fallen. But Baba Yaga did not stay to celebrate. She disappeared into the stars, her name whispered in every corner of the galaxy. Some say she died. Others say she still walks among them, watching, waiting. Because the galaxy had learned one lesson. Never take from a mother. For in her grief, she will become the end of empires. The empire's doom began with one pregnant woman. The Baba Yaga. The unseen threat. The galactic empire, vast and seemingly invincible, had crushed rebellions across the stars. Their rule was absolute, their fleets unmatched, their armies relentless. Yet, in the grand halls of the Imperial Council, whispers of an anomaly had begun to circulate, rumors of a woman, a mere human, who defied their might. She was called Baba Yaga. At first, they dismissed her as a myth, a ghostly tale meant to frighten soldiers. But those who truly understood the shadows of war knew better. Baba Yaga was real, and she was coming. Her war had not begun with great fleets or grand battles. No, it started with a single act of brutality. The empire had wronged her, thinking her powerless. In their arrogance, they had forgotten the fury of a mother, the wrath of a warrior who had lost everything. And now, their doom was at hand. The empire's mistake. The emperor's orders had been clear: pacify the outer colonies by any means necessary. The soldiers followed their command without question, razing villages, executing rebels, and enslaving the weak. It was a strategy that had worked countless times before. But this time, they had made a fatal error. Among those captured was a woman, silent, unassuming, visibly pregnant. The officers laughed at her, dismissing her as a weakling. She did not plead for mercy, nor did she weep. She simply observed, her cold gaze memorizing every face, every insignia. She was taken aboard an imperial transport, bound for the labor camps. Yet, before the ship reached its destination, it was found drifting in space, its crew slaughtered. The woman was gone. The first whisper of fear crept through the Empire. Whispers of vengeance. Across the conquered worlds, rumors spread like wildfire. Stories of an unseen force dismantling entire garrisons. Elite commanders found dead in their chambers, throats slit with surgical precision. Convoys disappeared without a trace. The name Baba Yaga was spoken in hushed tones. The Empire increased security, deploying their best warriors. Yet, it made no difference. The assassinations continued, the sabotage relentless. They were no longer facing a rebellion. They were facing something far worse. An executioner. The infiltration. Baba Yaga did not command an army. She needed no fleet. She moved like a shadow, slipping past their defenses with ease. Every step she took was calculated, every strike precise. The imperial warlords grew desperate. Bounties were placed on her head, planets were locked down. And yet, none of it mattered. She was already among them, watching, waiting. And when the time came, she struck. The fall of the first general. The imperial high general, Lord Tiberius, prided himself on his strategic brilliance. He had led countless campaigns, crushed rebellions without mercy. Yet, as he stood in his palace, surrounded by elite guards, he knew fear for the first time. Because Baba Yaga was here. The lights flickered. A scream rang out. Then silence. When the guards finally broke down the doors, they found Lord Tiberius dead, his body marked with a single message, for the unborn. The emperor's fury. The emperor was no fool. He had built an empire on blood and steel, and he would not allow a single woman to undo it. Orders were given. Planets were burned in retaliation. The death toll reached millions. And yet, Baba Yaga remained. She had not come for revenge. She had come to end them. The Phantom Army. No longer was she alone. The oppressed rose in her wake. Warriors, outlaws, and entire species cast aside their differences to fight under her banner. They did not fight for a throne or power. They fought for something far more dangerous, hope. The empire's doom had begun. The turning tide. The imperial forces were mighty, but they were stretched thin. Too many wars, too many rebellions. And now, a war they could not control. Baba Yaga struck at their supply lines, their command centers. She did not seek to conquer. She sought to dismantle. The empire's soldiers began to defect. Some out of fear, others out of admiration. The legend of Baba Yaga was no longer a whisper. It was a battle cry. The emperor's desperation. Cornered, the emperor made his final gambit. He unleashed his most terrifying weapon, a battalion of cybernetic enforcers, emotionless and programmed to destroy. But even they could not stop her. Baba Yaga was no longer fighting alone. She had become a symbol. And symbols do not die. The fall of the imperial city. The war had reached the empire's heart. The capital burned, its once proud banners torn to shreds. The emperor, once seen as a god, now cowered in his fortress. But there was no escape. Baba Yaga had come for him. The final confrontation. The emperor sat upon his throne, awaiting the inevitable. He had built an empire on fear, and now, fear had consumed him. The doors burst open. She stood before him, her gaze cold and unyielding. There were no words exchanged. No pleas for mercy. With a single stroke, the reign of the Empire ended. A new dawn. The galaxy watched as the Empire crumbled. The war was over, but the scars remained. Baba Yaga did not stay to rule. She had never wanted power. She had fought for something greater. And now, as she vanished into the stars, her legend lived on. The Empire had fallen. And it all began with one pregnant woman. The spark of vengeance. The Galactic Empire had ruled with an iron fist for centuries, its vast armies crushing resistance with ruthless efficiency. But on a small, insignificant world on the Empire's fringes, an event was about to unfold that would ignite its downfall. It began with a woman, pregnant, defenseless, and seemingly unremarkable. She was known only by whispers, the Baba Yaga. To some, she was a myth, a ghostly figure told in hushed tones among rebels and warlords. But to those who knew her truth, she was a force of nature, a harbinger of destruction, a mother of war. When imperial forces razed her village, they believed they had stamped out another ember of rebellion. They did not realize they had kindled an inferno. The ashes of innocence. Smoke choked the sky as flames consumed the remnants of her home. The scent of burnt flesh and broken dreams lingered in the air, yet amidst the ruin, she stood. Her hands, trembling with fury, clenched the dirt beneath her fingertips. The Empire had taken everything. Her family, her people, her unborn child's future. But grief was not her companion, vengeance was. She walked through the wreckage, unscathed, untouched. The Imperial soldiers who had torched her world had left, laughing as they spoke of their victory. They had made one fatal mistake, they had let her live. A mother's wrath. The stars above had witnessed atrocities before, but never the wrath of a mother wronged. The Baba Yaga was no ordinary woman. Trained in the forgotten arts of warfare, she had been a phantom among the rebels, a strategist without equal, a warrior whose name inspired dread even among imperial officers. Now, she was no longer just a fighter. She was an avenger. She moved in the shadows, gathering the remnants of those who had lost everything to the Empire. Outlaws, assassins, broken soldiers, each one bound by a shared hatred. They swore their loyalty to her cause, and in return, she offered them a single promise, the fall of the Empire. The gathering storm. News of her survival spread like wildfire. The rebels, once scattered and leaderless, began to unite under her banner. Her strategies were ruthless, her resolve unshaken. The first strike came without warning. An imperial outpost on the edge of the sector found itself under siege. No prisoners were taken, no mercy was given. The Baba Yaga had sent her message. The Empire dismissed it as a rogue attack, unaware that it was merely the beginning. Blood on the stars. The Empire's response was swift. They dispatched elite squads to hunt down the insurgents. Worlds were put under lockdown, and patrols were doubled. But the Baba Yaga was always a step ahead. Her forces struck like phantoms, vanishing before the Empire could react. One by one, the Empire's strongholds began to crumble. It was no longer just a rebellion, it was a war. The ghost of vengeance. The Emperor himself grew restless. Reports of the Baba Yaga's victories were too frequent, too brutal to be ignored. He dispatched General Krav, the most ruthless commander in the Imperial fleet, to deal with the insurgency. But Krav did not understand the kind of enemy he faced. The Baba Yaga was not fighting for conquest. She was fighting for something far more dangerous, revenge. Her forces ambushed his fleet, crippling his flagship and forcing him to retreat. The message was clear: the empire was no longer the hunter. It was the prey. The rising inferno. The rebellion had transformed into a full-scale revolution. System after system declared independence, rallying under the Baba Yaga's banner. The empire's forces, stretched thin, struggled to contain the uprising. And then came the final act of defiance. On the capital world of the empire, a message was broadcast across every screen, every frequency. The face of the Baba Yaga appeared, her voice cold and unwavering. This is your reckoning. The blood of the innocent will be avenged. The countdown had begun. The emperor's fear. For the first time in decades, the emperor felt something he had long forgotten: fear. Reports of rebel victories piled on his desk, each one more disastrous than the last. His generals whispered of defections, of entire fleets abandoning the empire. But worst of all, his spies could not locate the Baba Yaga. She was everywhere and nowhere, striking without warning, slipping through his grasp like a ghost. His empire, once unshakable, now trembled beneath her wrath. Desperation led him to summon his darkest agents, the Black Guard, assassins of unparalleled skill. Their mission was simple: find the Baba Yaga and end her reign of terror. But they did not realize they were the ones being hunted. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Black Guard moved silently through the outer sectors, following the faintest whispers of her presence. They expected a weakened, desperate woman. What they found was something else entirely. She was waiting for them. In the dead of night, she struck, eliminating them one by one. Their elite training meant nothing against her fury. The last assassin, wounded and terrified, sent a single message before his death. She is not human. She is death itself. The fall begins. With the Black Guard eradicated, the Baba Yaga turned her full attention to the imperial core worlds. The war was no longer one of survival, it was one of annihilation. Her forces, now a vast and disciplined army, launched simultaneous attacks. Across the empire, key supply lines were severed, strategic planets fell. Even the Imperial High Command was not safe. And then, at the heart of it all, she prepared for the final battle, the storming of the Emperor's citadel. The final reckoning. The imperial palace stood as the last bastion of the regime. Its mighty walls, once thought impenetrable, were now surrounded. Inside, the emperor awaited his fate, his once loyal guards wavering in fear. The Baba Yaga led the charge, her blade cutting through the last defenders. She moved with purpose, unstoppable, relentless. At last, she stood before the emperor. He begged. He pleaded. He promised wealth, power, anything. She said nothing. And with one swift motion, she ended the empire. The birth of a new era. As the emperor's lifeless body fell, the galaxy exhaled. The war was over. The old order had been shattered, its cruelty burned away. The Baba Yaga stood on the balcony of the imperial palace, looking out at the stars. The rebellion had won, but the battle was not yet over. A new future needed to be forged. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the life that still grew within her. This war had been fought in the name of the past. The next would be fought for the future.